I don't believe in things like fate or destiny. I never have. I'm a scientist, a pragmatist, and for as long as I can remember, I've relied on logic and reason to guide me through life. But standing here in the heart of KM-7, a deep-sea drilling platform nestled 11,200 meters beneath the Pacific, I can't help but wonder if I'm facing something beyond human understanding. The air in the control room was thick, the heavy hum of the turbines vibrating through the walls. Outside, the storm had picked up, pounding against the reinforced hull of the rig. The ocean, a vast, relentless force, raged above us, but within these walls, there was an eerie calm, interrupted only by the occasional hiss of the pressurized systems and the soft flicker of warning lights. I glanced at my team, each one of us surrounded by the sterile, mechanical hum of the rig. We were here for a simple mission: extract core samples from a newly discovered geothermal chamber, far deeper than any human had ever gone. Routine, really. It's what we did. But something about the mission, something about the deeper layers of the earth we were digging into, felt off. The pressure gauges flickered unnervingly, and the equipment, usually so reliable, had begun to malfunction in ways we couldn't explain. I stood at the helm, my fingers tracing the readouts on the display. Everything's normal, I muttered to myself, though I wasn't entirely convinced. I hadn't seen any issues, but there was something in the air tonight that felt heavier, like an invisible weight pressing down on us all. The drilling crew had already penetrated the chamber, their reports coming back with strange readings, but they hadn't flagged anything major. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were on the cusp of something terrible. I glanced at my colleague, Dr. Eris Thorne, the lead xenobotanist for this mission. He was reviewing the geological samples, his eyes scanning the screens with the usual detached interest of a man who lived for the pursuit of knowledge. Suddenly, a sharp tremor shook the rig, the floor beneath our feet vibrating violently. The klaxon blared, the warning lights flashing red. I scrambled to my feet, my breath catching in my throat. What the hell was that? I shouted over the blaring alarms. Eris was already standing, his face pale. It's coming from the drill site. There's been some kind of breach in the bore lining. We need to seal it off before it gets worse. I didn't need to be told twice. I rushed to the control panel, tapping into the emergency override system. The pressure readings spiked as if something had pulled the rig into the depths, rather than just a simple failure of equipment. The whole structure felt like it was being dragged under. Then, something happened that made my blood run cold. The readings on the monitors shifted, unexplainable, impossible shifts. We were no longer monitoring seismic data. No longer monitoring the integrity of the borehole. Instead, we were watching a bioluminescent glow radiate from the returning fluid. Green. Unnatural. Alien. The sample was pulsating, moving in ways I could only describe as alive. I turned to Eris. What the hell is this? My voice was barely a whisper. This isn't just a biological anomaly, he murmured, staring at the readings. It's a spore, or something much worse. This is alive. I looked at the vial in his hand, the sample of green fluid glowing faintly in the dim light. It pulsed with a rhythmic beat, like a heart. It shouldn't have been possible. This was no normal deep-sea bioluminescence. This wasn't a simple microorganism. It was something more. Eris's fingers trembled as he placed the vial back into the containment box. We need to run a full analysis. Immediately. This is a contamination. But before I could respond, the rig shook again, this time harder. The overhead lights flickered violently, and I saw a flash of green outside the observation window. But there was no light coming from the storm. No moon. The green was emanating from the ocean itself, glowing like a sickly pulse beneath the waves. What's happening? I asked, a sudden panic rising in my chest. Eris shook his head. It's not just the drill. Something down there has awoken. Something ancient. The hum of the rig's systems began to slow, grinding against the pressure of the ocean above us. Then, the voice came. A whisper, though no one had spoken. Descend. Release. Awaken. The words echoed through my mind, cold and distinct, as though they were not just spoken aloud, but planted directly into my consciousness. The walls of the rig seemed to close in around me, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. The cold dread that had been growing inside me now consumed me whole. Something deep, ancient, was calling to us. Something that had been waiting for us to uncover it. The ground beneath us trembled again, but this time, it wasn't the equipment. This was different. This felt like the ocean itself moving beneath the rig, a slow, rhythmic pull drawing us deeper. And as the hum grew louder, filling the room with a deep, vibrating frequency that I could feel in my chest, it was clear. The abyss had awoken. And now, we were part of it. What happens when the ocean itself calls you, and you realize you can never escape its pull? What do you think the crew of KM-7 will face next? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying stories from the abyss. The next few hours were a blur. The hum of the rig continued to fill the air, but now, there was an unsettling quality to the sound. It had become a deep, resonating thrum, like the pulse of something alive. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were no longer alone in the depths. Whatever we had uncovered, whatever we had disturbed in the dark waters of the Pacific, was watching us. The green glow outside the observation windows flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows across the control room. Eris was at the console, staring at the readings, his face pale as he ran through the data again. "This can't be right," he muttered under his breath. The words hung in the air, the dread in his voice unmistakable. The sample we had pulled from the geothermal chamber had begun reacting in ways we couldn't explain. It wasn't just bioluminescence anymore. The spore, or whatever it was spreading, moving through the system. The scanners couldn't make sense of it, but there was one thing that was clear: the substance was alive. I watched as Eris input commands into the console, his fingers moving with a practiced urgency, but the numbers on the screen didn't match. They kept shifting, changing, as though the data were alive too, reacting to our presence, to our every move. "We're not just studying it anymore," Eris said, his voice rising with unease. "It's affecting the systems. The rig. Us." He turned to face me, his eyes wide with a fear I had never seen before. "This isn't just a sample, Lena. It's conscious." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I could feel the weight of his words, the growing unease settling like a heavy fog over us. The house was silent now, the noise of the drilling and the machines in the distance almost non-existent. All we had were the flickering lights and the low hum of the rig that seemed to vibrate through the metal walls. I stepped closer to Eris, trying to get a better look at the data, but the screens were filled with strange symbols, pulsating in time with the glow outside. My breath caught in my throat. Something was wrong. Something was pulling us deeper into the abyss. And then, in the silence, it came again, the whisper. Soft at first, like the wind, but unmistakable. "Lena," I froze, my hands trembling. It wasn't Eris. It wasn't the rig. It was something else. Something inside the walls. I turned to Eris, but he didn't seem to hear it. His eyes were glued to the screen, his mind absorbed in the readings. I wanted to call out, to tell him, but the words died in my throat. The whisper came again, louder this time, filling the room, vibrating through the metal. "Lena. You're here? Come closer." I tried to speak, to call out to Eris, but no words came. My chest tightened, my breath shallow. The rig seemed to be closing in on me, the walls pressing down, the hum of the machinery now felt like it was echoing in my skull. I backed away from the console, my heart hammering in my chest, my eyes darting to the observation window. The green glow was brighter now, pulsing with an almost rhythmic energy. It was as though the ocean itself was alive, moving, waiting. The whisper came again, and this time, I could feel it, like a touch on my skin, cold and electric. "We're waiting, Lena. Come closer." The words echoed in my mind, seeping into my thoughts like poison. The rig shook again, and the lights flickered. This time, they didn't come back on. Everything went dark. The power had cut out. We were plunged into complete blackness, the only sound the frantic pounding of my heart in my chest. Eris cursed under his breath, trying to bring the power back online, but the rig was unresponsive. The eerie hum of the turbines had stopped. Everything had stopped. The cold settled deeper, sinking into my bones. And then, in the silence, we heard it. The faintest sound, like the scratching of nails against metal. It was coming from the walls. I looked at Eris, my voice shaking. "What is that?" But he didn't answer. He couldn't. Because the whispering had started again, louder this time, filling the empty spaces in the rig. And this time, it wasn't just the voice of the ocean. It was the voice of something else. Something beneath. "We are the abyss, Lena. You're ours now." What happens when the ocean that surrounds you becomes the ocean within you? The darkness inside the rig was suffocating. The lights had failed, the screens were all dead, and the hum of the turbines had ceased. For a moment, there was only silence. Absolute, unnatural silence. The kind of silence that presses against you, that makes your heart race in fear of what's waiting just beyond the edge of your vision. Lena's breath was shallow, her hand gripping the edge of the control panel for support as her eyes adjusted to the complete blackness. In the distance, she could hear Eris fumbling with the emergency systems, trying to get power back, but the more he tried, the more it seemed like the rig was resisting him. It wasn't just the lights. It was the whole structure. The house, the machine, the body of the rig, had become something different. It was breathing. It was alive, and it didn't want them to leave. The whispers continued to fill the air, growing louder now, swirling around Lena like an invisible storm. She could hear them, clear as day, but they weren't coming from anywhere near her. They were coming from the walls, the ceiling, the very floor beneath her feet. It was as if the house was speaking through her, pulling her into its depths. "Eris," she shouted, her voice cracking in the heavy air. "What the hell is happening?" He didn't respond, and for a moment, she thought she might be imagining it all. The house, the rig, the whispers. It felt like a dream, like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. But the sharp pain in her chest told her it wasn't. This was real. This was happening. The whispers stopped suddenly, and Lena's heart skipped a beat. Then, all at once, the power returned. The lights flickered to life, casting long, harsh shadows across the room. The hum of the turbines came back, steady and rhythmic, but it was different now. It was wrong. It didn't sound like the hum of machinery anymore. It was like the hum of something alive. Eris? Lena called again, her voice desperate. She took a step forward, but her feet felt heavy, as though the weight of the rig was pressing down on her, trying to hold her in place. The walls around her seemed to shift, the shadows stretching and warping in unnatural ways, and the air grew colder, thick with something she couldn't name. Then, a flash of green light illuminated the room, brief but enough to catch her attention. She spun toward the observation window. The ocean outside was alive, glowing with an eerie green light, the surface of the water shifting in ways it shouldn't. The storm had passed, but the ocean seemed to be watching them. The waves had calmed, but the water was still, almost too still. And it seemed to reach toward the rig, pulling at it like it was alive. Eris, she whispered again, the name barely escaping her lips. But this time, she didn't wait for a response. She moved toward the observation window, her feet light against the floor, her mind consumed by the image of the ocean outside. The green light pulsed again, brighter this time, and for a moment, she thought she saw something, a shape, rising from the depths. Her heart raced as she pressed her face against the glass, her hands shaking. The figure that had emerged from the depths was unmistakable now. It was large, too large, like something ancient, something not meant to be seen. It hovered just beneath the surface, its body undulating with the current, its eyes glowing with the same green light. Lena stumbled back from the window, her body trembling. The thing in the water, it wasn't just a creature. It wasn't just some deep-sea anomaly. It was something older, something that had been here long before the rig, before the world had even known how to breathe. And it was reaching for them. Eris. Lena cried, her voice high and panicked. But before she could run to him, the walls trembled again. This time, it wasn't just the vibration of the rig. The entire structure seemed to groan, as if it was being pulled into the abyss. The floor beneath her feet shook violently, and the lights flickered again, the power surging unpredictably. The whispers returned, this time louder, more urgent, filling every corner of the rig. They were coming from everywhere, surrounding her, suffocating her. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The whispers spoke all at once, drowning out everything else. You are mine. Come closer. You were always meant to fall. And then, the lights went out again, leaving them in the same darkness they had just escaped. What happens when the ocean calls to you, and you realize you can't run from what's already inside? Lena could feel the darkness pressing in on her, suffocating her, as the rig shuddered beneath her feet. The whispers were louder now, filling the space around her like 1,000 voices, all speaking at once, all demanding her attention. The power had failed again, the lights flickering on and off, casting strange, distorted shadows across the control room. She stumbled back from the window, the green light still pulsing outside, and her mind raced with the terrible realization of what she had seen. Whatever it was in the water, it wasn't natural. It wasn't a creature of the sea. It was something ancient, something otherworldly, and it was reaching toward them, toward the rig, toward her. Eris was still at the console, trying to bring the power back online, his face pale, his hands shaking as he punched buttons, but the screens were dead. He was just as trapped as she was, just as powerless. The rig groaned again, the sound deep and bone-shaking, as if the very metal was bending under an unseen force. Lena's heart pounded in her chest as she turned toward him. Eris, we need to get out of here. It's not safe. Her voice sounded foreign in her ears, desperate. He didn't look at her, didn't even acknowledge the panic in her tone. His eyes were glued to the black screens, his fingers still moving over the lifeless controls, as though he were willing them to come back to life. Eris, she repeated, louder this time, her voice cracking with fear. Finally, he turned to face her, his face drawn, his expression hollow. It's no use, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the rig. We're stuck. There's nothing we can do. The words hit her like a punch in the stomach, and she stepped back, her mind racing for a solution. But there was no escape. Not now. Not with whatever was out there, watching them from the depths. She could feel its presence, like a weight pressing on her chest, suffocating her with its unseen gaze. The ocean, it's not just the sea, Eris continued, his voice barely more than a whisper. It's alive. And it's been waiting for us. Waiting for someone to come close enough. Lena felt her blood run cold. She had thought it was just the stress, just the isolation, but now, hearing Eris's words, she knew it wasn't. They were being pulled into something far darker than they had ever imagined, something that had been buried deep beneath the ocean's surface, hidden away for centuries. And now it was awake. The rig shuddered again, and this time it felt different. It wasn't just a tremor. It was a force. A force coming from beneath them, from the depths, pulling at the rig, dragging it down. The lights flickered again, but this time, they didn't come back. The silence that followed was deafening. "We need to get to the lifeboats," Lena said, her voice rising with urgency. "We need to leave now, before it's too late." Eris looked at her, his eyes blank, as though he had already given up. He didn't move. He didn't respond. It was like he was already lost to whatever was out there, trapped in its grasp. Lena's breath came in short gasps as she turned back toward the observation window. The green light had intensified, brighter now, almost blinding, and the shadows outside seemed to ripple, to shift, as though something was moving just beneath the surface. And then she saw it again. The shape. The thing in the water. It was closer now, rising slowly from the depths, its form massive, its eyes glowing with that same unnatural green light. It was as if the ocean itself had come alive, pulling itself from the darkness and reaching for them, dragging them into its depths. And then the voice came again. The whisper that had haunted her since she first stepped onto the rig. "You cannot escape, Lena." It was deeper this time, more insistent, and it sent a cold shiver through her entire body. She turned toward Eris, but he was no longer there. The control room was empty, and the silence was suffocating, pressing in on her from all sides. The lights flickered one last time and then went out. The rig was plunged into complete darkness. The only sound was the distant, rhythmic hum of the ocean, the pressure building beneath them, pulling them closer to the abyss. And then, in the dark, Lena heard it again. A whisper, soft at first, but growing louder. "You belong to us now." What happens when the ocean itself claims you, and you realize it never let you go? Lena stood frozen, the rig groaning as it shuddered beneath her feet. The whispers, once soft, were now deafening. The green glow from the ocean outside filled the room, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. She tried to move, but the weight of the presence in the dark was too heavy. The house, the rig, the sea, it all felt as if it was pulling her down, sinking her into its grasp. She couldn't escape. She realized with a sudden, horrible clarity that she had never been meant to escape. The whispers grew louder, until they became a cacophony, drowning out everything else. She could feel them, inside her, filling her head, pressing against her mind. It was calling her to the depths, to the abyss that waited just beneath the surface of the sea. The house had already claimed her. The ocean had already claimed her. The whispers, the force, had been waiting for her, and now that she understood, it was too late. The ground beneath her feet cracked, and the walls shook. She knew what she had to do. She stepped forward, her legs shaking, her breath slow and deliberate. The green light pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, like a heartbeat. Lena reached out, her fingers brushing against the cold, smooth surface of the window. She wasn't leaving. She wasn't running. This was her place now. The house, the rig, the ocean, they were hers. And with that final, dreadful thought, she stepped into the light. What happens when the darkness swallows you whole, and you become one with the abyss? The truth is waiting beneath the surface. What if you've been there all along?